There comes a morning when the world feels slightly off, like a song playing half a tone lower than usual. You wake up, make your coffee, listen to the clinking of the spoon against the cup, and something in that small sound feels heavier than it should. The sunlight touches the table, but it doesn't warm you the way it used to. You glance at your phone, scroll without really seeing, and for a reason you can't name, your chest feels hollow. It's as if the story you've been living in has quietly ended, but no one told you to stop reading. You sit there, staring at the wall, and a strange stillness begins to form inside you. It isn't sadness exactly. It isn't peace either. It's a kind of spiritual exhaustion. The quiet collapse that happens when everything you once believed would save you finally loses its power. For years, you mistook movement for meaning. You ran from one person to another, from plan to plan, from high to high, believing that as long as you kept chasing something, you'd stay alive. You collected distractions and called them dreams. You chased affection and called it love. You chased adrenaline and called it purpose. But now all the chasing has led you here, to this soft, almost unbearable silence. You look around your life and realize how much of it was built on noise. You filled your days with people, with messages, with laughter, with anything that could drown out the deeper voice whispering beneath it all. That voice, the one you ignored, has finally grown louder than everything else. It says, "Stop running." And so, for the first time, you do. You stop. And when you stop, something happens. The silence that enters is not empty. It's alive. It hums. It breathes. It stares back. It asks questions you've avoided for years. What are you without their eyes? What are you without the chase? You try to distract yourself, to fill the gap with familiar noise, but the silence waits. It's patient. It knows you'll return. This is how awakening begins. Not with fireworks, not with angels descending, but in the quiet moment when you realize you can't keep lying to yourself. It begins when the comfort of illusion costs more than the fear of truth. You start to see how much of your love was built on fear, the fear of being unseen, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of being nothing if not reflected in someone else's gaze. Every time you said, "I love you," there was a secret plea hidden beneath it. Please stay, please prove I exist. That realization breaks something open in you. It's painful, but cleansing. Because when you see love stripped of its disguises, you can no longer confuse attachment with affection, drama with depth, or need with devotion. You begin to understand that much of what you once called connection was really an attempt to escape yourself. But the self you were running from has been waiting here all along, not to punish you, but to be seen. At first, you resist. You reach for the old distractions, a voice, a memory, a fantasy, but they no longer fit. They slide off your hands like water. The chase that once felt thrilling now feels heavy. The faces that used to light you up now seem distant, almost transparent. You start to realize that nothing outside you can fill what was never missing. And that's when the loneliness deepens, not because you are alone, but because illusion has died. The world you knew has collapsed, and what's left is too quiet, too real. You look at people differently now. You see the desperation behind the smiles, the ache hiding in laughter, the tremor in every "I'm fine." You recognize it because it used to live in you. You no longer judge it, you bow to it, because you understand now that every human being is trying to fill the same invisible hole, the one that can't be filled by another person. Still, the heart resists surrender. It asks, if love no longer hurts, will it still feel alive? It's a haunting question, because the world taught you that love must burn to be real. But slowly, something inside you begins to whisper back. Maybe love was never meant to burn you. Maybe it was meant to light your way. The silence grows gentler. You start noticing beauty in the smallest things. A bird on a wire, the reflection of clouds in a puddle, the weight of your own breath. None of it asks anything from you. None of it tries to prove its worth. It just exists. And for the first time, you start to understand that this quiet presence is what love truly feels like. It's not a rush, it's a return. You realize that awakening is not a triumph. It's not enlightenment descending from the sky. It's the soft, wordless surrender of finally saying, I can't keep running. It's the moment the heart stops screaming, save me, and whispers, I am home. And that whisper changes everything, Because once you hear it, you can never fully go back. You might still get caught in the old habits, the longing, the craving, the need to be seen, but now you'll see them for what they are, echoes of an identity that's fading. You'll play along for a while, but the old thrill won't last. The illusion has lost its flavor. The truth is quieter, but it stays. It doesn't seduce. It doesn't promise. It simply remains steady, unshakable, waiting for you to grow comfortable enough to rest in it. And little by little you do. You begin to live slower, to listen more, to say less. You stop chasing the next high and start noticing the miracle of breathing. You stop trying to be extraordinary and start realizing how sacred the ordinary truly is. You don't need to prove your worth anymore. Just being is enough, and that's when it happens. The quiet collapse becomes a quiet awakening. Not an ending, but a beginning. The birth of a peace that no longer depends on anyone else's heartbeat. There comes a day when you finally stop trying to be loved the way you used to be. It doesn't happen in one great revelation. It happens slowly, like a tide pulling away from the shore. You wake up, and the ache that once drove you to reach for someone has gone quiet. It's not that you no longer care. It's that something deeper has taken its place. A kind of knowing that no amount of affection can fix what was never broken. You begin to see how much of your life has been built around needing, the need to be seen, to be chosen, to be special, the need to be forgiven, to be touched, to be remembered. You see how love, for so long, was an attempt to fill a silence you didn't yet understand. And now that silence has become your teacher. At first, it hurts. You remember the old rituals, the texts sent too late, the words rehearsed in your mind, the nervous checking of your phone. You remember waiting for someone's attention like it was sunlight and shrinking every time it didn't come. You remember how much of your tenderness was bargaining. If I give you everything, will you finally stay? And it's painful to see how sincere you were in that illusion. You weren't pretending. You were trying your best with the tools you had, believing that love was something you could earn, that your worth could be measured by how tightly someone held you. But awakening doesn't let you keep that illusion. It removes it, piece by piece, until what's left is the raw truth. You were never incomplete. You only forgot your own wholeness. There's a strange beauty in that realization. You begin to forgive yourself, not just for loving the wrong people, but for mistaking need for love in the first place. You see that every heartbreak, every disappointment was never punishment. It was the soul's way of saying, this isn't the way home. Still, the ego mourns. It doesn't want to let go of its favorite story, the one where you are the lover, the savior, the one who gives everything. There's comfort in that role, even if it hurts. You've worn it for so long that emptiness feels like identity. So when the story ends, there's a grief that has nothing to do with the person who left, and everything to do with the self that's dying. You'll feel that death. It's subtle but profound, the quiet fading of who you thought you were. You may walk through days where everything feels unreal. You'll catch yourself wanting to reach out, to fill the space again, and you'll stop mid-gesture, realizing you no longer believe in the same game. That pause, that hesitation, is the beginning of freedom. Freedom doesn't arrive as joy. It arrives as space. At first, it's uncomfortable. You'll feel exposed, like standing under a sky too vast to name. But stay there. Let the air move through you. Don't rush to fill the silence, because that silence is not punishment. It's your rebirth, and slowly, something changes. The hunger that once ruled you begins to lose its sharpness. The ache softens into a quiet warmth. You realize that you can feel affection without the need to possess. You can love without the tremor of fear underneath it. You can be alone without being lonely. That's when you start to see people differently. You notice how many of them are still chasing, still mistaking intensity for intimacy. You watch them reaching for each other with trembling hands, asking for salvation in the shape of another face. You recognize yourself in them, the old version of you, and your heart fills not with superiority, but with compassion, because you know how convincing the illusion can be, how beautiful it feels even as it blinds you. This understanding changes the way you love. You stop demanding and start observing. You stop clinging and start listening. You no longer say "I love you" as a plea. You say it as an offering, expecting nothing, promising nothing, simply expressing what's true in the moment. Still, There are nights when the old ache returns. It creeps in quietly, whispering, "Wouldn't it be easier to go back? To feel that fire again, to drown in the illusion just one more time?" You'll be tempted. Because the human heart, even when awake, remembers the sweetness of the dream. But you'll also remember the cost. The endless cycle of hope and disappointment, the way love used to feel like survival. And that memory will be enough to keep you still. Here's the paradox. When you stop needing love, love begins to overflow. It's no longer a negotiation between two fears. It becomes a current that flows through you, effortless, clear, abundant. You start giving without the hidden agenda of being received. You start caring without calculation. You start letting people go without feeling like you're losing a part of yourself. This love feels lighter. It doesn't burn. It breathes. It moves through you quietly, like wind through leaves. It touches everything but clings to nothing. And the more you allow it, the freer it becomes. You'll notice that the more whole you feel, the fewer people can meet you there. Some will call you distant. Some will say you've changed. They'll try to pull you back into the familiar dance, because your calm unsettles their chaos. Don't blame them. They're still searching in the only way they know how. You no longer need to convince anyone of your peace. The awakened heart doesn't preach. It radiates. It lets others find their way, just as you found yours, through loss, through silence, through surrender. And that is the quiet miracle of awakening. You realize that love was never something to acquire, but something to remember. It was never lost, only hidden beneath the noise of needing. Now, when you say, "I love you," it carries no weight of desperation. It means, "I see you. I recognize the same light within you that lives in me." And if they walk away, the love remains. Because what you feel is no longer tied to a name or a face. It's tied to existence itself. You've stopped begging love to stay. You've become the place where love lives. That is the death of need, not a loss, but a liberation. The moment when the heart finally understands. You were never empty. You were infinite, pretending to be incomplete. There is a kind of silence that doesn't come from the absence of sound, but from the absence of illusion. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, like a slow tide rising around your feet. You think it's temporary, that it will pass once someone new enters your life, or once you find another dream to chase. But the silence stays. It doesn't demand, it doesn't announce, it simply waits. At first, you resist it. You turn on the TV, scroll through endless faces, replay old conversations just to feel something. You keep yourself busy, mistaking motion for meaning. But deep down, the noise doesn't satisfy anymore. The same stories that used to comfort you now feel thin, fragile, hollow. You start to see through them. That's when the loneliness comes. Not the old loneliness that begged to be filled, but a new one, deeper, quieter, wiser. It's not the loneliness of being without someone. It's the loneliness of seeing too much. You walk through the world and realize how many people are still asleep, how many hearts still believe the noise is life itself. You hear laughter that sounds like escape. You see eyes searching for something they can't name, and for a moment, you envy them, their innocence, their unawareness. But you can't go back. Once the curtain lifts, pretending becomes impossible, so you learn to stay, to sit inside the silence that once terrified you. At first, it feels like exile. The world moves on, and you remain. Conversations lose their taste. Crowds feel heavy. You stop trying to explain yourself because words can't reach where you live now. You begin to realize that solitude isn't a punishment, it's a purification. Every day, it strips away another layer of illusion, the need to be liked, the urge to impress, the reflex to belong. What's left is something raw and luminous, the simple fact of being. You begin to sense that existence itself is holding you, quietly, like a mother holding a child who finally stopped crying. You start noticing small miracles, the stillness before dawn, the hum of your own breath, the way sunlight lands on your hands. You begin to see that nothing is ordinary, that every simple thing carries eternity inside it. You no longer rush. You no longer ask, "What's next?" You simply breathe, and the breath feels like home. And yet, there's a sadness that lingers, a soft, sacred ache. because now that you can see clearly, you also see how rare this awareness is. You watch people collide in the dark, mistaking pain for passion, confusion for connection, and you wish you could show them, but you can't give awakening to anyone. You can only live it, so you become quieter. You learn the language of silence, the pauses between words, the spaces between thoughts. You realize that most of life happens there, in those in-between moments. The stillness becomes a companion. It doesn't speak, but it communicates more than language ever could. There are nights when you sit by a window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, and you feel an ancient kind of peace. You're alone, but not lonely. You belong to something vast, something that doesn't need to be named. It's in the trees, the air, the hum of the refrigerator. It's in you. You start to understand that solitude isn't the absence of love. It's its highest form. Because only when you stop demanding that love arrive in a specific shape can you see that it never left. It was always here, waiting for you to slow down enough to notice. Still, the mind will test you. It will whisper, "What if this peace means you'll never love again?" And you'll smile, because you know now that love doesn't depend on romance. Love is the space that allows everything to exist. The silence itself is love. Love without story, without name, without need. That realization changes the texture of your days. You move differently. You speak softer. You begin to touch the world the way sunlight touches skin, gently, completely, without claiming. You no longer need to control outcomes or demand guarantees. You trust the unfolding, because you finally understand that life has never failed you. It has only been trying to wake you. Over time, this solitude becomes sacred. It stops being something you endure and becomes something you cherish. You wake up grateful for the quiet, grateful that nothing needs to happen for you to feel alive. You find a deep contentment in simply existing. And from this stillness, love begins to bloom again, not as a desire, but as a presence. You feel it when you breathe, when you walk, when you look at the sky. You feel it in the ache of impermanence, in the beauty of what comes and goes. Love is everywhere now, because you've stopped demanding it to appear in a single form. You begin to understand that to love the world is to allow it to be as it is, to see it without trying to fix it, to hold it without grasping. And as that understanding deepens, you realize something profound. You've become the thing you were seeking. You are no longer the seeker. You are the space in which seeking ends. There's freedom in that. Not the wild, reckless freedom of youth, but a quiet, grounded one. The freedom to be here, to breathe, to exist without apology. And one day, as you sit inside that stillness, something in you whispers, "This is it. This is what you've been looking for all along." And you believe it. Because for the first time in your life, you no longer need anything to begin. You are already home. And then, one day, without looking, love returns. Not the love that knocks you off your feet, not the one that steals your breath or makes your heart race. It arrives quietly, like the scent of rain before it falls, gentle, inevitable, familiar. It doesn't demand to be noticed, yet you notice it immediately. It's in the calm of your own chest, in the stillness of your hands. You meet someone, perhaps a stranger, perhaps someone you've known forever, and there's no spark, no chaos, no dizzying pull, just peace. A recognition. It feels less like falling and more like remembering. You look at them and something inside you sighs. Oh, there you are. Not because they complete you, but because they don't need to. You speak, and silence listens between your words. You don't rush to fill the space. You don't try to impress. You've stopped auditioning for love. You no longer perform to be seen. You simply see. The air feels clear, the presence easy, and for the first time, love doesn't feel like hunger. It feels like home. This new love is different. It doesn't intoxicate. It steadies. It doesn't possess. It frees. It doesn't promise eternity. It honors the present moment as sacred enough. It isn't born from longing, but from overflow. It isn't about needing another to complete you. It's about recognizing yourself, reflected in their quiet eyes. When two awakened hearts meet, it's not a collision, it's a meeting of skies. There's no fire to prove its existence, only light. You don't hold each other to fill an absence. You hold each other because the peace inside you naturally wishes to share itself. You love not to escape solitude, but to celebrate it with someone who has also made peace with their own. Sometimes you walk side by side in silence. Sometimes you laugh until tears rise. Sometimes you say nothing for hours and feel everything. There's no pressure to define, no fear of losing, no contract to secure what is already free. Love no longer feels fragile, it feels eternal, not because it lasts forever, but because it doesn't depend on time. To the outside world, this love might seem distant, detached, quiet, but that's only because most people have never seen love without chaos. They confuse noise with warmth and drama with depth. But this love, this new love, burns differently. It glows. It doesn't consume to feel alive. It gives life through its stillness. And yes, even this love can change form. Sometimes it will remain, sometimes it will pass, like all things do. But when it leaves, there is no bitterness, no regret, because how can you mourn what never belonged to you? You don't lose it. You return it to the river it came from. The love remains in the silence, in the air, in the way your heart expands when you think of them. You start to see that the goal was never to find the person who would stay forever. It was to awaken the love within you that stays regardless. That love is unbreakable because it no longer depends on anything outside itself. It doesn't fade when people go. It doesn't vanish with distance. It simply changes shape, continuing to flow through everything you touch. And when you truly understand this, something sacred happens. You realize that you are love's expression, its way of seeing itself. You are not here to be completed. You are here to remember that you were never broken. You were the whole sky, pretending to be a single star. From that knowing, you begin to live differently. You love differently. You stop rushing. You stop trying to possess. You stop mistaking intensity for meaning. You move through life softer, like someone who knows that nothing real can ever be taken away. You speak with kindness, not because you want to be loved, but because love has become your language. And sometimes, when the night is quiet and you feel that old ache rising, you smile, because you recognize it now, not as loneliness, but as space. The same vastness that holds galaxies also holds your heart. You've learned to rest inside it. When love visits again, and it will, it won't ask you to fall. It will ask you to rise into clarity, into wholeness, into presence, to love without chains, without need, without the hunger to be completed, to love as two flames side by side, illuminating, never consuming. And even if that love only lasts a season, it will be enough, because you've seen the truth. Love is not what happens between two people. It's what happens when the walls between them dissolve. You begin to sense it everywhere, in the breath of the wind, in the quiet hum of a crowded room, in the way your chest expands when you simply let life be. Love is no longer a visitor. It's the atmosphere you breathe. That is the moment the circle closes. The same silence that once frightened you has become your home. The same loneliness that once ached now feels holy. The same heart that once begged to be seen now shines effortlessly, without needing eyes upon it. You finally understand the truth that was whispering through every heartbreak, every ending, every night you thought you'd lost everything. You never fell out of love. You were falling through love and back into yourself, and now you no longer fall. You rise. You rise into the love that never leaves. You rise into the peace that doesn't depend on anyone's presence. You rise into the vastness that holds everything and asks for nothing. And in that rising, everything softens. The world is still imperfect, still tender, still human. But now, you see it as it truly is. An endless unfolding of love trying to recognize itself. You close your eyes, you breathe, and for the first time, the air feels like enough. Love no longer burns to prove its power. It shines quietly, endlessly, the light that reveals you.